Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Guru Deva. Prabhupada ki jai. Aren't you glad pandemic is kind of over, but not over yet? I mean, this is nice. We haven't been able to do this. But I saw something today that there's something like 60% spike of COVID cases in New York City, and there's another version going around. So better stay careful. And hope it doesn't hit here. Things are so bad in Shanghai, in half of Shanghai, people are not allowed to go out and shop for their food. The government is dropping off food boxes to people at their homes in half of Shanghai. So, not over yet. At least some parts of the world. Is there anybody here that's new and needs a little introduction to who is Hanuman and Lord Ramachandra and those kinds of things? Are we good? Okay. Yesterday evening we were with children. It was like really challenging because they didn't know who was Ram. They didn't know who was Lakshman, Sita, and they had to clue them who was Hanuman. It was an interesting evening. Okay, so this evening, where my plan is to cover part one of a two-part set of prayers by Hanuman to Lord Ramachandra, found in 5th Canto, Chapter 19. 5th Canto, Chapter 19 is called Prayers by the Residents of Jambudweep. Shh. Prayers by the residents of Prayers by the residents of Jambudweep. So, I'll start with a little Vedic cosmology session. Jambudweep. Have you heard of Jambudweep? No? Not much. Jambudweep. You've heard of Vedic cosmology, the topic. Vedic cosmology is a description found in different portions of the Vedas, an extensive portion of the Vedas where cosmology is found is Canto 5, chapters 16 to 26. Very, very intricate, mind-boggling, hard to understand. But the basic structure is there's lower, there's middle, and there's upper planetary systems. In this middle planetary system is Bhumandala. And Bhumandala is where this earthly realm is. Bharat Varsha is one of 9 Varshas that are part of the central island that makes up Bhumandala. Bhumandala is a series of concentric islands with oceans that surround those islands, then rings of land or dvipas, and then oceans, and then dvipas, and then we don't see anything like that. In 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional space, we don't see anything like that. But that's what Bhumandala is described as. And the various dvipas or islands, the central island is Jambudvip. And Jambudvip has this fascinating, we've never seen it before either, upside down mountain where the top is broad and flat, and then the rest of the mountain goes down and it's golden shape. It gets narrower and narrower and narrower, and then the further part of that central island, Sumeru, it goes below Bhumandala. But the major portion is above Bhumandala. It's a golden island, a golden mountain that's very, very large dimensions tall. And that central Varsha, or tract of land in Jambudvip, is Elavrita Varsha. And then there's 8 other Varshas. 2, 2, 2, 2 makes 8. And then Sumeru, and then the central island. So the place where we are is in the southern direction of those Varshas, and it's Bharat Varsha, and then there's a mountain range, and on the other side of the mountain range is Hari Varsha, and on the other side of that mountain range is Kim Purusha Varsha. Kim Purusha Varsha is where Hanuman is. And there we're going to see the names of some others that are there. When Ram returned to the spiritual realm, to the spiritual Ayodhya, he left behind some of his followers, including Hanuman. And Hanuman's assignment was to chant his glories. And we hear in Valmiki Ramayana, this benediction is given by Lord Brahma, that his Valmiki Ramayanas will be heard as long as there are mountains and skies and seas, which means for the duration of this creation. And the creation is a really long time. And Hanuman is continuing for that duration, singing Ramayana, or the praises of Ram. And in this chapter 19, it describes Jambudvip, the central island, and some of the Varshas, and some of the persons who are offering prayers to the Supreme Lord in some of those Varshas. Chapter 19. And this set of prayers is from that. It's Hanuman reciting prayers to Lord Ram in Kim Purusha Varsha with his associates. Sometimes you've seen Hanuman has these little handheld like tambourines, but they're wooden, and he's just singing. He loves singing the glories of Lord Ram, and that's the setting. do you, can you make it go full screen so it doesn't show me over there on that side? So a little background on where Hanuman fits in to Ram's pastimes. First of all, we should appreciate that the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra are eternal. And Ramayana is eternal. There's a nice description found in the writings of Madhvacharya that the Mula Ramayana, Mula means root, the original Ramayana or Mula Ramayana was given by Hayagriva to Lord Brahma, one of the forms of the Lord, Hayagriva, handed or gave in sound vibration form Mula Ramayana, which is 1 billion verses. That's a lot of zeros. 1 billion verses. And then Brahma gave that Mula Ramayana to Narada. Narada gave a 74-verse summation of Ramayana to Valmiki, and Valmiki composed 74,000 verses to make up Valmiki Ramayana. But the original Ramayana from which that was taken, just like the Vedas are taken from the original one Veda that Vyas compiled in a written form, Valmiki compiled in a written form, 74,000 verses. And in other words, the scripture itself is eternal, the Lord himself is eternal, the pastimes are eternal, and they're displayed in this world once in the day of Brahma, like Krishna's pastimes are displayed once in the day of Brahma. Now, some of you may be a little bit newer, but many of you have been around for a long time, because I recognize some faces. And those of you that have been around for a long time, you know who is Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami, in addition to writing Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, another book that he wrote was Laghu Bhagavatamrita. Laghu Bhagavatamrita is now available, BBT translation, Gopi Pranadhana's work. When it sits on your shelf, it's that thick, and it has one topic. The one topic is avatars, or forms of the Lord as they appear in this world. That thick. And there are different sections, by, like in the table of contents, he organized it in a topical fashion. And so, in different ways, Ram's pastimes are described at different places in that book. And one of those places in that book, he gives very specific information that Lord Ram's appearance was in the 24th Yuga cycle of Vaivasvata Manu. Now, if you're like me, once upon a time, I heard about Lord Ramachandra for the first time. And I heard that he appeared in the second of the 4 yugas. So Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali Yuga. So he appeared in Treta Yuga. And then Krishna appeared in Dwapara Yuga. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in Kali Yuga. So I just assumed, until I read Rupa Goswami's writings, that is the Treta Yuga before Krishna's appearance that Ram appeared. And the answer is no. He appeared in the 24th Yuga cycle of Vaivasvata Manu, which is a long time ago. One Yuga cycle is 4,320,000 years. And he appeared in the 24th, then there was 25th, and 26th, and 27th, and the 28th Yuga cycle is when Krishna appeared. Long time ago, since Ramchandra appeared. And there's still Valmiki Ramayana intact. And so yuga cycles have passed. So how did it, here's a good one. During the end of each yuga cycle, at the change of each manu, there's a partial annihilation. At the end of the day of Brahma, there's a partial annihilation. So where do the scriptures go? Where does Valmiki Ramayana go during that period of time? Because it's supposed to last. Well, Hanuman is singing the glories. And it's preserved by sound. The whole of the Vedas are preserved by sound. And if it's not manifest, that sound vibration is available. And when the sound vibration is received by the qualified rishis, they then manifest it by sound. So Hanuman is singing these prayers that we're going to hear shortly, but a little background because it's nice to glorify Hanuman. Because it's Ram Nomi, just like a very big part of Ramayana is Sundarakanda. In fact, it's Sundara. It's very beautiful, very beautiful. And he plays such an important role in Ram's pastimes. And what we know about Hanuman is he is the son of the wind god, Vayu. One of the things we know about him. And he was born on top of the Anjanadri, the hill of Anjana. And how that happened was when the demigods were praying to during the yagya which Rishishringa was performing for Dasarath to have sons, the demigods were assembled in the heavens to receive the oblations offered to the demigods. And when they were assembled in that manner, while the yagya was going on, they were having this demigod conference, and they were letting Brahma know, you did something that made it really difficult for us. You've given benedictions to Ravana that we can't check him. So please do something. And the prayers were offered to Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu came and assembled with them and explained, no worries, very soon I'm going to appear on earth. In fact, of the yagya that is being performed now by Rishishringa, I will appear in 4 forms, and you should come and assist me by creating praja on earth that will not be in conflict with the benediction given by Brahma. So specifically, they were to become fathers of offspring, and specifically, a big group of the offspring were Vanaras. And so that's how, by that order of Lord Vishnu, through Lord Brahma, the demigods then created praja. And Vayu is one. Vayu, of course, many of the important personalities in Ramayana had one of the demigods as their father. And Vayu at one time saw Anjana. There's the story of Anjana is before she was a celestial personality, and she had this curse that she had to come to earth. She came to earth, and she then became the wife of Keshadi. There's further details. But one time she was on top of this mountain walking, but she had mystic powers. She was assuming a very beautiful form. And Vayu became attracted. And in a mystical way, without violating her chastity, she became pregnant. And she was in some anxiety, but he said, don't worry, a great child will be born of you. And that was Hanuman. So Hanuman became the son of Anjana, and thus Anjaneya is one of his names. Anjaneya. And when he was very young, he had powers, mystic powers. One of those mystic powers was like the power of Vayu, where he could travel any distance. So one time his mother sat him down to go gather some food for him. As he was looking up in the sky, he saw, looked like a big fruit. He was hungry. So he went zooming off into the sky to get this big fruit. You know the story. And he was zooming through the sky, going for the fruit. There's different versions, by the way, different versions of Ramayana. So if you've heard a different version than the one I'm reciting, that's okay, because there's different versions. There's variations on the pastimes, but the theme is there. So don't be disturbed if you hear something different than what you grew up hearing. One of the versions is that as he was heading for the sun to get some fruit, Rahu was in anxiety because it was his time to get to cover or try to devour the sun. So he went to Indra, help. Indra saw Hanuman flying through the sky, and Indra released his thunderbolt and hit Hanuman with his thunderbolt, who went then crashing down to earth. And when he crashed on earth, he hit a mountainside and broke his jaw. Or some versions say his thunderbolt broke his jaw. And when he landed, then Vayu saw the whole thing, and he became very angry. So he started with holding the movement of air through the universe. And everyone started to suffocate, including the demigods. And they were in big anxiety. And so they, together with Indra, there we see in this nice painting, there's Brahma on the right side, there's Lord Shiva next to him, there's Indra making some gifts to Hanuman. So without all the details, because it's nice, the details are very nice, but Indra requested every one of the demigods present to offer some benediction to Hanuman, saying that this Hanuman is going to be assisting us in defeating Ravana, so give him some benedictions. And you got this benediction, that benediction, so many benedictions. And one of them came from Indra himself, which was that even a Brahmana's curse cannot harm him. So that proved to be a problem, because now he's this powerful little Vanara, and the Brahmanas can't do anything to check him. So he was creating mischief, monkey business, amongst the Brahmanas while they were doing their yajna, disrupting their yajnas. So, but they had this, they can't curse him. So they made this caveat. Brahmanas are smart and tricky sometimes. So he'll forget his powers until that time when he is again reminded. So he just became a nice little Vanara. And in course of time, because he was so gifted, he became a chief minister of Sugriva amongst the Vanaras in the Kishkinda area. And he had forgotten his powers until this time when the Vanaras were assembled, and we see Jambavan, the bear, and there's Sampati, and they're looking in the direction of Lanka, and Sampati confirms, yes, that's where Sita is. Although I can't fly, my eyesight is good, and it's 800 yojanas, or 100 miles away, you could still see, because vultures have good eyesight, they could see. Sita's there. So then they wanted to go confirm and inform Sita. Please wait, Rama's going to come and rescue her and all that. So Sampati, having rendered this service that he did, he had this prior benediction that he would regain his wings when he was able to render some service to Ram. So he flew off, and now the Vanaras are trying to figure out how to get to Lanka. And, who can jump, which Vanara can jump 800 miles. And some said, I can jump this many, some say that many, some said, and no one could do it. Jambavan said, when I was younger, but I'm so old now, I can't do it. Hey, then Jambavan reminded Hanuman of his powers, which once reminding Hanuman of his powers, because Jambavan outlived everybody, and he knew that Hanuman had these powers. As he was reminding Hanuman of his powers, he reminded him of how his jaw became disfigured. That's the meaning of Hanuman, disfigured jaw, hit by the thunderbolt of Indra. And when he was just young, he was so powerful, he was able to pick up elephants by their tail and twirl them around and throw them around. Hanuman, you surely can do this. So as he was describing the powers of Hanuman, his body got bigger and bigger and bigger. He was ready to go. And that's the end of the Kishkinda Kanda, and Sundarakanda begins when he begins his journey. It's hard, Ramayana is told in little pieces sometimes, and it's hard to just do it in pieces because it's so nice. The details are so nice. But that's what I'm doing right now, just little pieces. Just that whole section, the first 2 chapters of Sundarakanda, where he's going up on Mahendra Mountain and crouching, getting ready to go, to make his jump. And it describes this happens, and that happens, and that happens, and that happens. The Sri Vaishnavacharyas describe this is how, these are steps that a great personality, a representative of Ram, must go through to prepare themselves to bring souls that are separated from Ram back to Ram, Sita representing that situation. So off he goes, and he runs into 3 obstacles. He gets on the other side. He meets Lankini. She checks him. Who are you? He had assumed a very small Vanara form, and she wanted to stop him. He didn't kill her. He just gave her a sacco in the jaw. And she then remembered this omen, this statement that had been made, when a Vanara comes, the whole of Lanka will be destroyed. So she let him in. The time has come. And she went running to tell Ravana, the time has come. He got lots of warnings. There's many things that happened, of course, during the rest of Sundarakanda. He makes his way back to inform Ram that he found Sita. So many nice things happened. This leaping capacity became important again when Lakshman was hit by the Shakti Shela weapon of Ravana. The Shakti Shela weapon of Ravana was given to him by Mayadanava at the very time when he was married to Mandodari. He gave a lance or a Shakti Shela weapon that was very powerful, and he used it against Lakshman. And when he's laid low Everyone's in great anxiety. There in the middle with that nice little mustache, that's the Ayurvedic physician taking his pulse, Sushena. And he needs some herbs. He knows which herbs. He knows where to get them. And there he goes. Hanuman's going to get the herbs. There's different versions of Ramayana. One of them was he couldn't figure out which herb it was because they hid themselves, so he brought the whole mountain. And here's Hanuman giving the herbs. And here's Shushena administering the herbs. And Lakshman is then brought back to life, revived by the herbs brought by Hanuman. This is Ram withdrawing the lance from the chest of Lakshmana. On the upper left, that's 10-headed Ravana. In some places, it says that the mountain that he retrieved was the Gandhamadana mountain. In some places, it says it's Mahodaya mountain. In any case, here he comes, flying through the air, because he had he's the son of Vayu. He could travel great distances, which he did more than once. And there they see Hanuman coming in for a landing. There's Jambavan, and that's Shushena with a nice little cap on. And here's Shushena administering the Sanjiva Karani herb. So those are just a few of the many, many pastimes of Hanuman. So we're preparing ourselves to begin these verses from 5th Canto, Chapter 19, text number 1. Srila Shukadev Goswami said, "My dear king, in Kim Purusha Varsha, the great devotee Hanuman is always engaged with the inhabitants of that land in devotional service to Lord Ramachandra, the elder brother of Lakshmana, and the dear husband of Sita Devi." It's a nice painting. It shows Ram, it's like a deity standing on a lotus, and Hanuman in a giant form by the side of the sea with a giant club. Here's Hanuman singing, as we know he sings in Kim Purusha Varsha. A host of Gandharvas is always engaged in chanting the glories of Lord Ramachandra. That chanting is always extremely auspicious. Hanumanji and Arishtasena, the chief person in Kim Purusha Varsha, constantly hear those glories with complete attention. Hanuman chants the following mantras. Now, in interludes, another nice painting is Hanuman is an eternal associate. So there's a pastime of his being born, which we very briefly heard, but he's actually an eternal associate. Just like Krishna and Balaram are eternal associates, and there's pastimes of their appearance, or Radharani's appearance, and it's not like once upon a time that Krishna didn't know Radharani and then they met. They're eternal associates, and there's pastimes. So Hanuman, being the son of Vayu, became a minister of, who was he the minister of? Sugriva, right? Sugriva? Just checking, see if you're awake. And as the minister of Sugriva, he was very loyal. And as we know, Sugriva had a falling out with his brother. What was his brother's name? Vali. And He was at risk of his life. Many things. That's a whole other part of Ramayana. But he was at risk of his life. And so Sugriva and his ministers went to a place where Vali wouldn't go. And that's a long story of why Vali wouldn't go there. Because he would instantly lose his life. Because there was a curse caused by some bad thing that he did long ago by Sage Matanga, that if you went in this region, you'd immediately die. So he didn't go. So that's where Vali didn't go, and Sugriva stayed, and his ministers, chief of whom was Hanuman, stayed on top of a mountain, Rishimukh mountain, in Kishkinda. So when Ram had lost Sita, Ram and Lakshman were searching for Sita, and searching and searching and searching, they came across one mystical creature, Kabanda, who, when he was killed, informed them. His body transformed into a celestial being, and said, "Here's how you can regain Sita. You make an alliance, a friendship, with one who is in the same difficulty as you, one who has lost his wife, is Sugriva, and you'll find him on Rishimukh mountain. And the way that you'll find Rishimukh mountain is you go to the place by Lake Pampa, and there's a hermitage of Sage Matanga, and you'll find him in that vicinity." And Shabari was there, and Shabari met him and told him where to find Sugriva. So off he went, looking for Sugriva. And Sugriva's up on Rishimukh mountain saying, "Uh-oh, what's this? Two men carrying weapons like Kshatriyas, but dressed like ascetics. This is maybe a trick. It's one of Vali's tricks." So he even jumped to another part of the mountain to hide. He was nervous, skitterish, because his brother was really powerful. So he sent Hanuman, who had the mystic power of changing shapes. And so he had Hanuman do your shape-changing mystic ability. Go before Ram as a Brahmana and check him out. Is he friend or foe? And such a beautiful scene. It's one of my favorite scenes of the whole Ramayana. It's like the first time that Lord Nityananda met Lord Chaitanya. It's such a beautiful scene in Chaitanya Bhagavat and Chaitanya Charitamrita. So they're eternal associates, but they're meeting for the first time. And when they meet for the first time, Hanuman doesn't even have to say anything, because he's such a qualified person. By seeing the countenance and the features of Lord Ram, he immediately understood. So rather than asking, Ram, who are you? He immediately disclosed everything about who he was. I'm Hanuman, the son of Vayu, and here I am representing Sugriva. Sugriva's up there on that mountain, and his situation is such and such, and I'm here to assist him. Very beautiful description. And he just falls at his feet. In this nice section, there's so many nice things to say. Ram doesn't immediately speak to Hanuman. It's significant. He turns to Lakshman and speaks to Lakshman about Hanuman, assessing the qualities in Hanuman that he can detect. He's evaluating from the Vaishnava acharyas that are commenting on Ramayana. Ram is looking for a guru to bring Sita back, a qualified person that he can empower. And he's seeing qualifications. It's not there yet, but his poise, the evenness of his speech, he speaks very clearly, impeccable Sanskrit, perfect grammar. He's a good candidate. He doesn't say exactly like that, but he's good. And then after Ram speaks to Lakshman, Lakshman then introduces both he and Ram. And saying, Kabanda sent us here to find Sugriva. Interesting that you're his minister. And could you take us to meet him so we can see if there's a possible friendship between Sugriva and Ram, and they can assist one another regaining their lost wives. Of course, Hanuman agrees, and he assumes a giant form, carries them both bounding up the mountain, and introduces them to Sugriva, and they make this bond of friendship, and so many things happen. But he's instrumental in many ways from this point forward in Ram's Leela. And when after sufficiently evaluating Hanuman's qualification, particularly it's mentioned when Sugriva says, after dividing up the Vanaras into four and going four directions, etc., Sugriva says, audible to Ram, I'm confident you'll be the one to find Sita. Now Hanuman was given the assignment of going with the group that went in the southerly direction. The son of Bali was the leader because he was the next king after Sugriva would become king. He would be the incumbent king. So he was given that leadership role, and Hanuman in the ministerial role. But Ravan had gone in the southerly direction. But there wasn't guaranteed that that's where he was, because Rakshasas are very tricky. And back to Vedic cosmology, sometimes the Rakshasas would make their residence in this earthly realm, in the Bhumandala realm, but their primary residence is above the Bhumandala realm. In the Bhuvar Loka realm is commonly where that's the habitation place of Rakshasas. There's all kinds of interesting entities and places in that below heaven, but above the earthly realm, or above the Bhumandala realm. So there's no telling where he's gone. That's why they had to search. Otherwise, he just would have gone in the southerly direction, because they knew he went in the southerly direction. But Ram was convinced, after everything, he's the qualified one. So this celebrated event where he gives his personal ring to Hanuman, saying, I trust that you will find her. And when you find her, she'll not be trusting in you. Show her this ring. And Hanuman knew how to do it. He didn't do it right away, but he did it in such a way it was appropriate. And he then, showing this ring to Sita, her uncertainty and doubts were dispelled because she recognized Ram's ring. And the Vanara with the crown on, that's Sugriva, and Lakshman with the little beard there behind Ram is with the bow, and Jambavan and the rest of the Vanaras. Verse number 3. It begins, Om Namo Bhagavate Uttama Shlokaya. Let me please your lordship by chanting the Bija mantra Omkar. I wish to offer my respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, who is the best among the most highly elevated personalities. Your lordship is the reservoir of all good qualities of Aryans, people who are advanced. Your character and behavior are always consistent, and you always control your senses and mind, acting just like an ordinary human being. You exhibit exemplary character to teach others how to behave. There is a touchstone that can be used to examine the quality of gold, and you are like a touchstone that can verify all good qualities. You are worshipped by brahmanas, who are the foremost of all devotees. You are the Supreme Person. You, the Supreme Person, are the King of Kings. And therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. So this is the first of his prayers, and it's very clear that the prayer is indicating that he's recognizing Ram as the Supreme Being. You're running out of power? Really? Okay. Now let's step back a bit, and we'll go to Vedic cosmology again. Nice frame of reference. There, we spoke a little bit about the lower, middle, and upper planetary systems. And beyond all of those is layers of the universe. And the layers of the universe are really thick. Some of you know the name Sadaputa Prabhu. Sadaputa Prabhu, some of you don't know. Richard Thompson, some of you know, some of you don't know. He's a disciple of Prabhupada who was given the assignment. He's a PhD scholar from Cornell University, who his PhD was in mathematics, but Prabhupada gave him the assignment to make a design for the Temple of Vedic Planetarium by studying 5th Canto Bhagavatam. And being a mathematician, one of the things that I recall very clearly, he described that each universe, if on the scale, each universe was about the size of a pea inside a pea pod. If the dimensions, the interior dimensions of the universe was the size of a pea, the layers of the universe, because it's 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times, would be like so many millions of miles. If the inside of the universe was the size of a pea. But the inside of the universe isn't the size of a pea, it's the inside of the universe. It's very big. So the layers of the universe are really big. Really big. Really, really big. And there's something on the other side of those layers of the universe. And that's the causal ocean. And there's something on the other side of the causal ocean. And that's the spiritual sky. And within the spiritual sky, there's vast, unlimited number, unlimited means too many to count, number of Vaikuntha planets. And the Vaikuntha planets, that's called Haridam. So from Brahma Samhita, we know there's Devi Dham. Above Devi Dham is Mahesh Dham. Above Mahesh Dham is Haridam. And above Haridam is Goloka Dham. And the topmost region of Haridam is Ayodhya Dham. And what makes it topmost is it has more of the Madhurya feature than the rest of Haridam. In Haridam, or in Vaikuntha realm, It's awe and reverence. Lord Narayan is manifesting the fullness of his opulences. Bhagavan in full opulence and full display all the time. And people recognizing that, they're in awe and veneration of him. And the mood of that place is awe and veneration. However, the topmost of the Vaikuntha planets, or Haridam, is Ayodhya, where there's personal features. More emphasis on, for example, amongst the eternal associates of Krishna are his father and mother, Dasarath and Kaushalya. Does Narayan have a mother and father? No. And Lord Ramachandra has 3 brothers. Does Narayan have 3 brothers? No. Etc. There's aspects of the eternal pastimes of Lord Ramachandra in Ayodhya that's very personal. It's not everyone in Ram's Leela that recognize Ram as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They recognize him in differing degrees, but they also have this feeling. I mean, how can Dasarath have the mood of love of a father if he thought he's the personality of Godhead? Little incompatible. Whereas in Vrindavan, there's Mathura, Vasudeva and Devaki, they move between seeing him as the personality of Godhead and seeing him as their son. Right? When he appears in the prison house of Kamsa, he's the 4-arm Vishnu form. And they offer their prayers. And then, interestingly, Devaki says, can you assume a childlike form? Because once Kamsa hears that you've appeared in this 4-arm form, he's going to come and try to kill you. But they're Vaishnavas. They can't kill Vishnu. So it's a motherly affection. So assume a childlike form. Maybe we can hide you. But it's a motherly affection. And when Krishna comes back to Mathura, having just killed Kamsa, they're seeing his divinity. And Krishna doesn't want that. He wants their affection. So he covers them with Yogamaya and they treat him like their son. They vacillate a little bit. And in Vrindavan, there's no vacillation. He's our beloved son, friend, lover, etc. Hanuman has this unique position where he's the emblem of Dasya Rasa. He just immersed in servitude. Again, in Rupa Goswami's teachings, because Rupa Goswami is a Krishna Bhakta, and he's describing the 9 manifestations, 9 different categories of devotional service. And when it comes to Dasya Rasa, the others, he indicates a Krishna Bhakta. But when it comes to Dasya, you can't beat Hanuman. So he uses Hanuman. So he's perfect servant of the Lord, that he is in the mood of service of the Lord, but there's intimacy also. There's intimacy. Like, his showing Ram in his heart, that celebrated pastime, or bringing Sita's ornament, jewel, showing it to Ram. How can I repay you? I can only give you my embrace. Fantastic, right? There's an intimacy in Hanuman's relationship with Ram. At the same time, so this is the Ayodhya mood. At the same time, there's the majesty and there's this intimacy. So here in this verse, he's showing a human-like characteristic where he's illuminating good conduct. Anyone that's read any parts of Ramayana know that's the mood that you feel after reading it, is live by virtue. Because that's Ramayana. It inspires that. He emits that. He carries it. He portrays it. And he inspires it in others. Always we see Ram with a bow, because he's the ideal king. And he shows his majesty by breaking the mighty bow of Lord Shiva. And when he broke this bow of Lord Shiva, of course there's different Ramayanas, but one version of Ramayana says, not only the requirement for marrying Sita was that someone could lift the bow and string the bow. But even to bring the bow for Ram, it took 300 men bringing the bow in a chariot, a little container that had wheels. They couldn't pick it up. But why was this the requirement to lift the bow and string the bow? Well, there was different explanations because there's different Ramayanas. And here's a few of them. When Sita was younger, of course she was pretty young when she married Ram, but when she was younger, she could lift the bow. It's just one of the versions is she was, Janaka wanted her to learn how to be a submissive and do domestic duties, so he gave her some cleaning responsibility in the palace. And one of the areas where she cleaned was where the bow was kept, because she was very conscientious. With one hand she picked up the bow, with the other hand she was cleaning underneath the bow and put the bow back. And he was considering, I can't have my daughter marrying someone that she can do something greater than her husband can do. There's another that she was playing ball with her friends in the garden. And the object, the ball or whatever it was that they were playing with, got stuck in a tree. They couldn't get it. So Sita knew what to do. She ran and got the bow and got the ball out of the tree and put the bow back, and they continued playing. But 300 men couldn't lift the bow. So Sita had powers. She told Ravan, with my asceticism alone, I could instantly kill you. But I won't waste my asceticism on you. Ram will come. You'll see. She was so bold and very powerful. And when he not only lifted the bow and strung the bow, but he broke the bow, it's a very beautiful painting. The sound, the crack, was so loud that people just got knocked over with the sound. And there's Sita with her garland ready, and Janaka on his throne, ready to see Sita to betrothed to Ram. There you see Sita, and he's the taller one on Janaka's left or our right, and then there's her younger sister. Her younger sister, Urmila, ended up marrying, who did she marry? Lakshmana, right? Lakshmana. And there's Vishwamitra in the front. Here's a nice photograph of the place where Janaka resided. The kingdom of Janaka. You know, obviously it's a reconstruction of something, but it's there to commemorate where King Janaka resided. Now we know that Lord Ramachandra was the personality of Godhead. And in Valmiki Ramayana, we don't find this scene where Ram is worshipping a Shivalinga. But so it's not found in Valmiki Ramayana, but for those of you who are members of ISKCON, you must know, it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that when Lord Chaitanya traveled to the places of South India, one of the places that he went was this very place, Rameshwara, where it is said there's two Shivalingas, where Ram, there's different versions of Ramayana. Some say he worshipped Lord Shiva prior to crossing to Lanka, getting blessings of Ram to cross. Others say like this, that when he came back in the Pushpaka Vimana, he was stopping at various places, and one of the places he stopped was at Setu Dhanushkoti. And this is, because Ravana was born the son of a Brahmana, and he was wanting to purify himself. This is the worldly personality in his Leela, wanting to purify himself for having killed the son of a Brahmana. And so to do that, it was the worship of Lord Shiva. And he was doing this to establish religious principles and to show that he liked very much honoring his own devotee. There's some nice text here. So there was he sought the advice of Brahmanas. What should I do to purify myself? And they gave him this remedy to worship Lord Shiva. But they had to be done within a certain period of time. And so Hanuman was sent to get a particular Shivalinga at a very auspicious place. But when he came back, too late. So what did Sita do? Sita fashioned a Shivalinga with her own hand with sand, and that was the Shivalinga that was worshipped. And the Shivalinga that was worshipped was called Ramalinga, and fashioned by Sita from hand. And then Hanuman showed up. But it was too late because there was already a Shivalinga. And so by the side of this Ramalinga was this additional linga that that Hanuman brought. And so in that place, maybe some of you have been there to Rameshwara, you've seen both. Yeah. It's not in Valmiki Ramayana, but it's a very celebrated part where Lord Ramachandra, like Krishna, wanted to honor his devotee, Arjuna, and others. The Lord likes to do that, so he wanted to honor the Vaishnavanam Yatashambhu, the best of all devotees. This is a nice photograph of the place where Ram worshipped Lord Shiva. Agni Tirtham. And Ram's bow, once again, of course there's different versions of Ramayana. Some, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the crossing of the ocean beginning to boil, was arranged by Ram's glancing at the ocean. Another version is he shot some arrows into the ocean and the ocean began to boil. And so, in any case, but because he wanted, this was Vibhishan's recommendation, you'll get help to cross the ocean if Samudra comes and gives you some assistance. So there's Samudra coming and offering his prayers to Ram to help him cross the ocean. And he makes this nice recommendation. It's just a very quick gloss of these nice pastimes. We have just one more verse to cover halfway mark. It's 7:00, and I'll just cover this one verse in the little description. The Lord, whose pure form, Satchitananda Vigraha, is uncontaminated by the modes of material nature, can be perceived by pure consciousness. In the Vedanta, he is described as being one without a second because because of his spiritual potency, he is untouched by the contamination of material nature. And because he is not subjected to material vision, he is known as transcendental. He has no material activities, nor has he a material form or name. Only in pure consciousness, Krishna consciousness, can one perceive the transcendental form of the Lord. Let us be firmly fixed at the lotus feet of Lord Ramachandra, and let us offer our respectful obeisances unto those transcendental lotus feet. So the lotus feet of Lord Ramachandra are being massaged here by Sita. And I like this painting in the sense that it reminds me very much of Lord Narayana reclining on Anantashesh and being worshipped at the lotus feet by Lakshmi. You know, the scene is different. There he is with his bow and arrows, and there's Lakshman in the background looking out for the protection of Ram and Sita as if he needed protection. But it's the same loving mood that Sita was offering to Ram that Lakshmi offers to Narayana. But she is not the only one. Here's Guha, who was very happy to similarly wash and worship the lotus feet of Ram, although he is a Nishada king. But he was a great devotee of Ram. And because of his devotion, Ram gave him these privileges to access his worship of his two lotus feet. Oop. When we, a group of us went to all these places, well, many of these places. This is Sringavarapur, where Ramachandra was assisted in crossing the Ganga by Guha. And just one last thing. Vedanta Deshika wrote 1,000 verses in glorification of the padukas of Lord Ramachandra. And an ISKCON devotee just sent me a nice rendering of a very celebrated set of prayers, a stotra, Ram Paduka stotras, that are glorifying in a similar way, glorifying Lord Ramachandra, and the role that his lotus shoes, padukas, played in his pastimes. I don't know if there are devotees here in this room that have a particular affinity for Lord Ram. Certainly there are personalities in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. Two prominent personalities are Murari Gupta. Murari Gupta was in Navadvip, a very dear associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited home because their homes were so close. Many times, in many ways, they had wonderful exchanges. And Murari Gupta was a Ram Bhakta. There's nice pastimes. He was examining the devotion of Murari Gupta. One time he instructed Murari Gupta, who looked up to him, just worship Krishna. And Murari Gupta wanted to please Lord Chaitanya, so he tried worshiping Krishna, but he couldn't worship Krishna. He couldn't sleep all night long. He was in big anxiety. Please take my life. He came back the next morning. Give me another instruction or take my life because I can't follow this instruction. And Lord Chaitanya embraced him. Just see, I just wanted you to show all of us how much love you have for Lord Ramachandra. So to be a devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one does not need to be a devotee of Krishna. one may be a devotee of Lord Ramachandra. Rupa and Sanatan had a third brother. His name was Anupam, and he was a Ram Bhakta. And it's described when Rupa Goswami visited Lord Chaitanya in Jagannath Puri, on the course of his travels along the Ganga, his brother Anupam left this world. And Rupa Goswami stayed with Lord Chaitanya for 10 months. 10 months in Jagannath Puri. 10 days after Rupa Goswami left Puri is when Sanatana Goswami arrived in Puri. So Lord Chaitanya informed Sanatana Goswami that his brother had died when Rupa and he were traveling to meet Lord Chaitanya. And then Sanatana Goswami tells Lord Chaitanya how Rupa and I tested him. We wanted to test his devotion to Lord Ramachandra, and we asked him, similarly, to just worship Krishna, but he couldn't, because he was so devoted to Ram. And they were appreciating. We examined him, but he was so attached to Ram. So I know some ISKCON devotees that are very attached to Lord Ramachandra. And in the midst of all this, Krishna Katha, and the Bhagavatam, the 10th canto, and Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes, and everything else that we're so accustomed to hearing in the Hare Krishna movement, they hear those things and they have very profound Ram Bhakti. So I don't know if there's some Ram Bhaktas in the room, but great. You have you have good company. Good company. Good company. I'll end with this. Some time ago, when we went to South India, to the places of Ramchandra's pastimes, specifically, in the Aranyakanda and Kishkindakanda places, we went to those places and had the katha of those pastimes. In the group, there was about 40 devotees from China. And one of the devotees from China became very inspired by Ram's pastimes. So they boldly sought permission and got permission from the Chinese government to print Ramayana in Chinese. The publisher told them, because of the India-China relations, I'm very surprised. But through the publisher, not only it was approved that it would be published, but they gave an ISBN. So now it can be printed in a regular printing place without any government problems. And there's lots of government problems, I'll tell you. China and religion don't go well together. And then some time passed. So this devotee's been working on to make Chinese characteristics to conform with the story of Ram, without all the detail what that means. They're working on it with the publisher, and it's ready to go. So I came up with this idea that I found out I want to give you the microphone. I found out that long, long ago in Chinese history, Hanuman made his way into Chinese culture. This is off topic, but I think you'll appreciate it. There's a celebrated personality in China's history in the 6th century AD. Xuanzang was a Buddhist in the eastern part of China, and he became attracted to Buddhism, but he heard so many versions of Buddhism he was confused. So he decided he wanted to go to the place where Buddha appeared and hear the real story. So he made an overland journey through deserts, and he was a very good scholar. He kept very careful notes, had a whole journal of his, and there were no such journals of the territory and the tracts of land and the kingdoms and what was going on in the world during that period of time. There were no records, but he kept very careful records. And there was threats to his life and this and that and the other thing. He finally made his way to the birthplace of Buddha. And when he was there, he learned Sanskrit. He stayed there for several years, and he was given a whole cartload of books to take back to China in Sanskrit and have translated into Chinese, Buddha's teachings. And then, then he kept all that information going back. So there's a long story. The Chinese government has made like a 6-part documentary because he's a celebrity. He's an important historical person. And then about 1,000 years later, a more contemporary guy came along and took his story and made it popular. And in that story, there's the Sun King, and he's a monkey. And the monkey makes friends with Xuanzan. He helps him get across, do everything. So I was told this by the Chinese devotees. There are 4 books that everybody in China must read that goes to school, and everyone goes to school. And it's a story, this popularized story that tells about the Monkey King. And he's in, they already know Hanuman. They don't know him by the name Hanuman. They know him by the Monkey King, and he has a Chinese name. So I thought, gosh, this is a foot in the door. So what if Hanuman reappeared in mainland China today? And so a friend of mine, a Prabhupada disciple named Yogeshwara Prabhu, who writes books, when he was younger, he wrote children's books, and one of the children's books was Hanuman. It's an 80-page book. It's a storybook for children, beautifully illustrated, and fast forward, he has the copyright. Another Penguin published the book in America, but they don't have international rights. He has the right. He's the author. So he gave his authorization, and the printer is getting permission for Hanuman going into mainland China today with nice illustrations. And then this devotee has a whole introductory section of how Hanuman is already in Chinese culture. This and that and the other thing and the other thing and the other thing, and scholarly people, and it's very well researched. So it's not just for kids, it's for adults. They can understand, hey, this is relatable, because the Chinese government is really pushing Chinese characteristics in everything. In everything. And certainly in philosophical teachings, and certainly religious teachings, Chinese characteristics, please. And it's not please. So it's a really good opportunity. And so I was visiting a place, and it's Naperville. Where's Naperville? Naperville is a suburb of Chicago, and they're building a multi-million-dollar temple, phase 1. And the chief fundraiser was the hostess of a home visit. And she let the temple president know, I'd like to give him a gift. And it was winter, and I said, can I get him a jacket? So I was asked, can she get you a jacket? And I said, the family where I'm staying, they gave me a jacket. It's in a box in the closet. It's going to stay in the closet when I leave. I don't need a jacket. If she wants to help, she can help bring Hanuman into mainland China. And it turns out she's a Hanuman Bhakta. And her brother, who lives in the same area, is a Hanuman Bhakta, and somebody else is a Hanuman Bhakta, and they want to sponsor Hanuman comes back to mainland China. And they're ISKCON devotees. So if you're an ISKCON devotee and you're a Ram Bhakta or a Hanuman Bhakta, fantastic. Welcome to the club. And the glorification of Krishna and the glorification of Ram means the glorification of their devotees. Just like Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, or Hanuman and the whole of Ramayana. Such an important person in Ram's pastimes. Such a significant portion of the Ramayana is Sundarakanda and what comes before that too, Kishkindakanda, and the battle, Yuddhakanda. He has a very important role in Ram's Leela. And even when they get back to Ayodhya, he has an important role. So we're going to hear tomorrow evening the other half of Hanuman's prayers. So let's see if there's some discussion. It's 18 minutes after the hour.
Hare Krishna, devotees online. If you have any questions, please raise your hands.
What about the people in the room?
And the people in the room can raise their hands too. Do we have first question?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, it's really nice to meet you. My question is, like, we go to school every day. We meet so many people who don't necessarily follow the same value system as we do. How do we disentangle ourselves so we don't follow the same path?
How do you stay strong so you don't become subject to valueless society?
Yeah.
Excellent question. Well, just by asking the question, you're halfway there already. Meaning, your light's on, and you understand the values, and you want to preserve them. Any parent would love to hear that from their child. One day when you become a parent and you'll hear your child say that, you'll feel really good. So I'm sure your mom and dad are feeling really good that just you're saying that, because that's when there's something strong inside, then there's protection. Now, one of the things that you can think about as you're going to school is you're Krishna's instrument, because I'm not going to go to your school and meet your friends, the kids your age. Okay. Lean this way so I can have eye contact with her. Thanks. But you can, just like, the other people in the room, they go to wherever they go. They go to an office or they go do stuff. And they're associating with people that don't have the same values that they have. But I'm not going to meet those people in their office. I'm not going to meet the other kids in your school. But you can be a representative of the message. You don't have to sit down and have a Bhagavad Gita class with everybody. But you can, if you see yourself as an instrument, then you let me be a perambulatory Bhagavad Gita kid. I can walk around and display the character and qualities of one who's living a life according to Bhagavad Gita. And that's protection. And then somewhere out there, there's besides people that then get a model of what a life of devotion to Krishna looks like, there's somebody out there like me that went through school and didn't know nothing about nothing. They thought they knew a lot of things about a lot of things, but really didn't know ABC. And there's some people that want to know. So you as an instrument you're looking for those opportunities to give, not too much, but when people have a little curiosity, you give something. Not too much, but something that will inspire them or make them curious or want to know more, or something that's relatable. According to different people, think different things are relatable to them. So you're a messenger, Krishna's little messenger, little, but messenger, to give Krishna's message to people that would like to hear it. And if you're carrying that in your heart, you don't have to say it, but you're carrying it in your heart, Krishna will send you those people, because there are those people. And you have to do it carefully, because you don't want to be, pushback. You don't want people to think you're a, pushy something or other. But but if you wanted to give, Krishna will provide opportunities for you to give. And even if it's just one person, or half a person, or kind of interested, or they can try to take some of the values that you have. I mean, here's for example. For example, why do you eat the food like that? Do you get people ask that question? Sometimes. So there's a way to answer it that put them off, and there's a way to answer it where they find it's interesting. It depends on the person, how you want to answer. But, you don't depart from your values. And there's always bullies around, and they'll just, be insulting of anybody about anything. At the same time, it is, in the younger generation, it's cool to have values that you live by. You just kind of stick out a little bit, like that's your individuality. Some people get tattoos, and some people put pieces of metal in parts of their face or something, put their hat on backwards, or show their individuality some way or another. So you just have your this is me. You're not showing it off. You're just, and that's a service. So in school, you can be an instrument to carry forward Krishna's message by word and by your character. If you're thinking that way, you're protected. And you'll be in part because you're wanting to give. You received, you want to give. You give cautiously and thoughtfully. And if you're in that mood of giving, it's a little bit like the mood of Sankirtan. Here's a story. Once upon a time, I was a college kid. And then I started liking Krishna consciousness, and I decided to live in an ashram. One of the first things they had me do, or we did, we went to a concert. Young kids, during my time, concert was like, that was fun. That was our sense gratification fun. So we went to a concert. And I wasn't thinking, wow, this is really good. I like the concert. Because we were in the mood of, we were chanting and giving books and teaching and giving the message of Krishna. So I was protected from that noise and, and everything else that goes along with concerts, without naming the other things that go along with concerts, intoxication and stuff. So I was a little surprised, because there was protection, because I was in a mission. So you can be, during all stages of life, including your young adult life or, school life, you can be, in addition to the mission, a dual purpose. They'll develop your intellectual skills through your education and training and all that, which you'll use later in life in so many different ways. And you've got a little mission on behalf of Krishna to be that point of bhakti contact for somebody out there, or maybe a few somebodies. And there are going to be people that don't like it. And that's okay. And there are going to be people that like it. And that's okay. But you have a mission. And when you have that, then Krishna will give you both individuals who you can interact with that will be inspiring, but it'll also give you intelligence and how to conduct yourself, how to stay protected, and how to give in meaningful ways. And hint, one of the best ways is prasadam, because that's universal, everybody likes. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thanks for the nice class. I have a very quick question. We spend 99% of our time with non-devotees. And so sometimes I feel like I'm a small fish in a big ocean in the middle of sharks. So what is the...
That's your question. From a different age.
What is the message for people like us, how to behave and what to do?
Ye not mastu prasidati. When you have received nicely, you'll feel a joy within. So focus on receiving nicely. Like the Bhagavad Gita verse. Brahmabhuta. What's the next line? Prasanatma. Yeah, no sochati nakang. So prasanatma, or some when there's a happiness within, there's a contentment at least. The sense of like this young girl is, I have values and I want to stay with them. So you feel contented when you're nicely fixed in a sense of who you are and what your mission of life is. I mean, it doesn't have to be fully developed, but some core sense of that. Then you're in good shape. Krishna is stronger than that other 99%. And you keep your Krishna connection intact. And, association with other like-minded persons when opportunity provides, just like this. And that gives you strength. And then you take from that strength. And same as this young girl was asking, you look for, as a representative of Krishna, you have a mission. You're an emissary. You're moving around in that ocean, and it's not only sharks. There's lots of people that are not content. And some people don't know it, and some people know it. And those that aren't content, and they see somebody content, it's attractive. You can be an instrument to help bring persons who the light's on, and they realize there's something more to it than this. Whatever this they fill in the blank. This is. There must be something more, and you're the emissary from Krishna to deliver that something more. But that's if you're feeling it and you're carrying it. So do a lot of on the receiving side, and you'll be a better instrument, and you'll be protected, for sure. Yoga kshema vahamyaham. You know the verse, right? Nice verse from Bhagavad Gita. Unto those who are constantly devoted to me, I preserve what they have and carry what they lack. So you're protected. And it's at all stages. the younger generation, the older generation. It's Sadhu Sangha will give you that strength in your own personal efforts. And be eager for more mercy, so you're covered.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Bhakti is a little bit infectious. It spreads. So if you're carrying bhakti nicely, it will spread to others. And then, the circle will widen a little bit. And you'll feel, I was good. I'm happy to be able to be an instrument of Krishna, spreading this infection. Anything? Okay, anything online? I'm surprised.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, so nice to see you. Thank you for your mercy here. Maharaj, it's something which I'm struggling for many, many years. I have this tendency, it seems like I was dog or hog, that's what I feel in my previous birth, because I have this tendency to eat. And I can just go on and on and on. And I also have the pleasure to cook, so I can cook whatever I like to cook. But how do I work on this tendency of not overeating? And we can also overeat prasada, Maharaj, but I feel that it's an hindrance on my spiritual path.
It's definitely a hindrance. Here's a secret. Want to know a secret? Promise to tell everybody?
You're on record here. You are on YouTube.
That which you enjoy, cooking and tasting, try to dial up the devotional element of that cooking and tasting, that Krishna should be pleased. Just like, there's two just likes. Just like young people, they like music. Is your daughter? No? Yes?
Yeah.
Mother, daughter. And so, like music. But now how to take that liking of music, which isn't bad, but it can lead to other things and other things. But if it's that liking of music is connected to pleasing Krishna, it's a whole other experience. It's one of the things that I like to do with young people that like music is have them make that transition from music to singing for Krishna, or getting together and together honoring Krishna through that medium of music. And when that bhakti element dials up or increases, it's a whole other experience. Or the same with cooking and same with eating. Here's the other little story. Some years ago, I had a desire to spend the whole month of Kartik in Vrindavan. But being service-minded, I couldn't do it because I had to be doing some service. Very kindly, a friend of mine, Burijan Prabhu, started this system where in Vrindavan there was a whole month of classes called Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education. So I signed up. I taught courses so I could stay in Vrindavan for a whole month and have service. And when I was there was a Prabhupada disciple named Vibhu Chaitanya, who was an Indian man, didn't speak much English, but he was kind of old and he had a back problem. So he couldn't walk straight. He had his arms kind of like a bird getting ready to take flight. That's how he walked. And he came every morning, same time every morning at Mangal Arti, obeisances half standing in front of each of the altars, and then he went into the deity kitchen, and he didn't come out of the deity kitchen until after the Rajbhog offering, because he cooked the Rajbhog offering. So I asked him, he's just like a glove jamun kind of a person, so soft and juicy and nice. So I asked him, could I get something from your Rajbhog offering every day? So it was arranged. I got a little leaf cup of vegetable every day. And for 1 month, that was my lunch. That's not what I'm used to eating. But because it was cooked by Vibhu Chaitanya with such devotion, I was fully satisfied. There's an answer to your question. If you increase the devotion with which you do everything, to make the purchases, do the cleaning, do the preparing, do the cooking, the offering, and then the eating part is also just when that satisfaction increases, the other attraction and satisfaction subsides, because it's the real purpose of the act of eating, or the act of music, or the act of anything, is to make that as an offering unto Krishna. Now that's easier said than done, and it's a cultivation, but you have that as a direction to move in. And it's already something that you like, just like young people like music. It's not you have to twist their arm, they have to do music, they like music. But then you do it for Krishna, and it's a whole other thing. Not just the finesse or the details of how you play mridanga or sing the kirtan, or that, it's another satisfaction. Okay? It's a secret. Okay, it looks like we're done.
There's a question online.
Online. Here's the behind you. What's going on?
Do you want to read? This is from Facebook, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna, what is the fast way to go back your normal routine of my sadhana, like I used to be, getting up earlier, etc.? I have been struggled for a while and tried different ways which helped me before, but just not helping me now. Please guide me. I think it's from China.
Well, getting a restart on your spiritual life can be a little more difficult than starting first time. But the restart has the same principle as the starting, and the restarting principle is sadhusanga. Find something and someone that's doable, and you do that for some period of time. Right? See? Confirmed. Here's a nice for example. For example, these days there are groups of devotees that get together each morning for something. It's a little inspirational reading, and then some japa, and then something. So find some devotees that do some of those things that you can connect with, the persons and the activities you can connect with, and you do that. And once that's up and running, then you're in good shape to get back to what your routine was. But it's the principle of sadhusanga. And the pandemic has been a curse and a blessing in both, because these online things happen a lot. There must be some of those things in this community. Yes? Yes. One example that I'm aware of is in Houston. Shyam Sundar started doing this, previous temple president, and he's got a whole group of people. And some of the people that I know that have been chanting for 10 years, 12 years, they started joining his class and found it helped them a lot to increase the quality and absorption of their chanting. And so, Sadhu Sangha. Okay, thank you very much, Prabhupada Ki Jai.